Bună și bine v-am găsit la ZF Real Estate by Storia.ro, prima emisiune dedicată afacerilor din imobiliare. Sunt Ioana Matei și alături de mine se află de această dată prin Zoom Jan Demeyere, arhitect, co-founder și partner la Speedwell. Hello, Mr. Jan Demeyere, thank you for being here, even via Zoom. You are responsible for the urban landscaping part at Speedwell, and you are involved in all the company's projects from implementation to delivery. Describe us a little more your role.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation, first of all. Well, the company Speedwell is founded with my partner, Didier, and me, and that's 8 years ago now. And we have Didier as an engineer, and I'm, as you mentioned, an architect. And we divide the tasks between us. That I'm more involved in everything that's, let's say, architecture and design, and also urban planning. And Didier is more involved in everything that's more theoretical and financing. And that's the way we split the jobs. Of course, not only by us, we have a full team of people behind us. Also, we have our own architects, our own landscape designers in-house, also interior designers, but also the project managers, the financial team, let's say the legal team is also here, the sales team. So it's a big organization with all different, in fact, responsibilities.
It's a big organization which focuses also in Romania. Tell us a little bit about the projects you are having here.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we started Speedwell in Romania, and we are doing projects not only in Bucharest, but also in secondary cities, especially cities where we see there are universities, because those cities have a certain attraction for people, young people, to go there and to live there. So these are growing cities. We call them a little bit like magnet cities. And we are focused on residential. I think 70% of our portfolio is residential. We also have a part that's doing offices, and then also some small retail. And then since last year also we started to invest in industrial, but small, medium enterprise units. So that covers the whole area of what we're doing today.
And before speaking about the role of urban landscapes and the role of projects like yours are shaping the cities of Europe, can you tell us how do you feel that the real estate market is doing now? Because there are a lot of titles, especially in the media like ours, that speak about a crisis again.
Yeah. Well, you can see my gray hair. I had a few crises in my life, so it's not the first one we were having. But I wouldn't call it a crisis. Certainly it is a slowdown, and it's logical that the slowdown happens if you look at the price of construction, which have risen and still are not also going down. If you look at the prices of financing, that's going up. That puts a lot of pressure on a lot of buyers and a lot of people. So what we feel is that it's going to take some time to recuperate this period. But if I compare Romania to other European cities, then I see that the banks after the crisis of 2008 have stayed extremely careful in financing projects. So like land financing is something that was possible like in Belgium and impossible in Romania. So the equity needed to do project was much higher, and that makes for us quite a sane market. So it's a healthy market, I would call it. Over leveraging is not there, and that creates not too much banking problems. Of course, there's not only let's say the price impact, there's also the quality impact. We also have let's say the zero carbon neutral direction that we have to follow, which again puts pressure on pricing. We have the difficulties of permitting, which again plays also on the supply on the market. So there are a lot of aspects which makes us cautious, which makes us quite careful in how do we proceed with projects. But again, we had this philosophy from the beginning when we started with Speedwell. It's to make sure that every project we do is a cautious project. So that means the building in different phases. And we always pay attention to the location we're building. What we have noticed over all those years, and since I've been in real estate for over 30 years now, the mantra location is important, but it has become bigger. It's become location, it has become quality, it has become sustainability, and also one of the subjects you're talking about now, landscaping, is becoming hugely important. And so the package is more, the sum of all parts is becoming much more important.
But would you say that the actual European context influenced your company to put more focus in the Central and Eastern Europe? Are we doing better than the Western parts of Europe, maybe?
Yes, I'm 100% sure you're doing better. It's not even a question mark. I think we have a lot of also, let's say, Belgian investors who are investing with us in Speedwell, and we see the difficulties they have for the moment in Western Europe, not only to find projects, also, like I mentioned, over leveraging was there a huge discussion point. Also, the profits were not so high, so that would, if you, now you increase the construction prices, you increase the prices of financing, your margin becomes almost diluted. So that's a real difficult situation. Plus the fact that what I see here in Eastern Europe is there is also huge demand for quality living. So in general, I think you're doing much better than what we're doing in Western Europe. So for me, the key points today is Eastern Europe, not only Romania, but we are also talking about Poland and other Eastern European countries who now have the chance to become a hugely important, to play an important role in Europe, and I think a more important role than Western Europe. We have nearshoring as another example. Nearshoring, people, okay, Ukraine is a disaster, I think, especially for the people over there, but it also opens opportunities for neighboring countries. The nearshoring is coming, so people are coming back from China, investing again in Eastern Europe. Yeah, that's a huge challenge. And what is very comforting for me today to see is that there is a huge investment in infrastructure. And I haven't seen this in the last 20 years since I've been in Romania. We see highways being built, trainways, in fact, investments in metro and subways. So yeah, the future looks quite bright, but we have to stay cautious.
It's interesting how every time we speak with a foreign investor, his opinion is far more better than ours when we look at our country.
Yes, yeah. I think Romanians should be more proud now and then, not only to the beautiful country they have, but also to the potential they have. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are in every country. I'm from Belgium. I don't have to discuss any politics because in our country it's also not but also on the Romanian level, I think there should be the political stability is for any investor, very important. The pity that we have now with the permitting in Bucharest is, for me, not only as the investor, as developer, but also as an architect and urbanist, incomprehensible that this can happen in a city of 3 million people, that somebody has the power to stop all developments over 3,000 square meters. For me, incomprehensible, but again, it's a democratic country. People have been chosen, so we have to live with the choices they have made.
Unfortunately, yeah. But a situation like this is not very common in Europe, no?
No. Honestly, I've never experienced this in my life. I'm very honest. Where one person has a certain vision over a city. I'll be talking about, let's say, the city of Bucharest, and also the decision of the mayor to stop all PUZs being even not only PUZs, also opportunities to certain locations to stop it completely. I understand there were things that were done wrong in urbanism, but that's not typical for Romania. That's typical for any European city that has been growing. Look at Spain, look also at Belgium, look at other countries like also in France, where you have certain areas which have been poorly developed without any quality. But that's not a reason to stop everything. It's like you don't stop traffic because you have 2 drunk drivers. You arrest 2 drunk drivers and you let people drive. So that's a little bit the mentality.
Okay, the reason I invited you to speak today was to tell us a little more about this concept of urban landscapes.
Yeah.
which could shape the cities into a better city, because this is kind of new for Bucharest, even though there aren't any permits to be offered to new projects in Bucharest now. How do you see the potential of the city from this point of view, from the urban landscape?
Well, we're still lucky on one hand that maybe the mayor is stopping the permitting, but we can still dream and make designs. So that's what we have been doing also over the last 2.5 years, is improving the quality of the landscaping of our project. And it is becoming, like I mentioned before, it's becoming one of the main aspects. It's not only, it used to be like a simple calculation, okay, how much floor area do you have, how much outside area do you need to provide? But that's a long time ago. I had one of the discussions also with our people that there has been a request in Bucharest to have 20 square meters of greenery per inhabitant of a project. I think this is the wrong way, the wrong approach. It's not about just numbers. It's more about that. There are qualitative measures on every urban landscape that you have, and it's becoming very important because also the density of our projects are getting bigger. And those criteria, I think there are enough examples. You have Jan Gale, you have different other urbanists for writing at how do people behave in a public space, and not only in public space but also private space. And those criteria, they are different. You talk about, when you talk about urban landscape, it's not only plants and greenery we're talking about. It's how do you define a certain space, and then to make that space viable and qualitative depends on certain points. I mean, it starts also with an urban landscape is defined by areas, and to define that area, one of the important key measures is the diversity of build form. What we have seen before in the time of the modernists, that you saw they built all the same blocks, and if they were a little bit creative, they did it in different colors, but all the same blocks, and in between they made it just an open space, just a public open space for everybody. Now, this is definitely not the way to go. What we see is that if you have different heights, you have different building topologies, a building with a sloped roof, a building with a flat roof, you have building on 3 levels and 4 levels. Those define the space and already make a huge change. And then you have the diversity of the build forms, but you also have the diversity of the spaces themselves. Don't make the space all the same. We have one project under development now, in a design now, where the idea was to create buildings around public space. And it's quite a big project. I'm talking about Griro. It's a project that is definite difficult one, because it's also edged by the railway station, by Kaligredice, so it's not an easy one. And then you define the urban landscape by creating spaces, smaller ones, bigger ones, private, semi-private, public spaces, all on a different level, on a different way they are connected. And one hugely important, another important aspect on that is the human scale. We always say a road is defined by width and by the height of the corniche around those areas. That's also important. So having a huge building with a big square in front doesn't make give any qualitative aspect to the people who are living there, because human beings are always relating to the eye level they have. So they walk through a street and you define the space by what you see. What is happening over the 6th floor is something that we almost don't see anymore today. So we have to be concentrated on that level. And then it comes also to microclimate. Where do you make spaces where there is shade? Where do you make places where people can sit in the sun? Let's say almost winter and there is a sunny day. It's also nice to enjoy it. You create trees, you create shadows, you create places where people can sit. And the whole idea is, if you make a correct urban landscape, that you can create a community. There are different layers of urban landscape. I see it. You have let's say, the more private landscape, like we have in an apartment or in our house, which we are completely secluded. Then you come into the common area of an apartment block, which also has a different atmosphere. And from that, you go outside, maybe a private garden, only for the user of that apartment block. So there are all different layers of privacy, and they all should have a different aspect. And then also a very important issue, of course, is the carbon neutral, the sustainability of how you make that area. We try to use everywhere where we do landscaping, we try to use indigenous plants and trees, and also the diversity, and then it goes into smells, colors, seasons should be visible. And the whole idea is that, in fact, it's enjoyable for people to sit outside and to make relations with other people, to talk to somebody who has a kid, older people taking care of younger people. And that's the whole urban landscape that we should do today. So it's not a difficult, it's not an easy task. Landscaping, the time when we talked about grass and trees, that's long behind us. It's a more difficult thing to design these days.
And do you think the developers have adapted to these modern trends? Because it sounds really complicated to accommodate all these behaviors and infrastructure and everything that needs to be accommodated.
It's not, as I mentioned, it's not an easy task. It requires a lot of designing, redesigning. It also involves getting neighborhoods. If you create a new project and you talk about urban landscape, you have to look beyond your plot borders. What are people missing in the neighborhood? Is there a sport field missing? Okay, you give the sport field and people are attracted to your project. Do people have adapted? Here and there, I have to say that I see nice proposals of how it should be done. Not only people looking on their plot itself, but also engaging other people and engaging communities, and then creating urban landscapes. And more time is being put in urbanism than the step to architecture. And urbanism for me is landscaping.
Okay. But you have mentioned these communist blocks which were built in the communist times. We have many of them. Do you think that we can get to, I don't know, to a better shape of the city, considering that there are still many very old buildings in Bucharest?
Yeah, this will be a huge challenge for Bucharest. I'm very honest. One of my professors told me if you would have asked somebody, how can I destroy the urban quality of life, then you would have invented the modernists. Really, they just destroyed everything that's so nice and typical about the city. When a lot of people in Romania, they go to Bruges. They say, oh, Bruges is the city, that's amazing. It's a wonderful city. If you go to Bruges, you see the streets are small.
Everything is small. Yeah.
And people need that. People really need to identify themselves with a certain location. And then if you we are all different people. I'm different than you, and I like to maybe be the person who stands in a corner, and maybe you're the person who likes to stand in the middle of the square and talk with people. But you have to provide all those elements, and that's something that these communist blocks didn't do. It was general for everybody. It was the same for everybody. And that's again urban life. That's against urban life. So it will be a challenge to adapt. But I have, very honest, I saw a lot of modernist projects that are just being destroyed these days.
One of the biggest challenges people who are living in Bucharest are having is going from the south of the city to the north of the city where they work. Now, the problem is not that big because most of the people work from home still after the pandemic. But it used to be a huge problem because you stayed 1 hour in traffic only from going to one neighborhood to a different one. What would be the solution for this problem?
It is a huge challenge. I think Bucharest is one of the densest cities I know, and I'm thinking one of the densest cities in Europe. Honestly, there are a lot of solutions, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I think it's political suicide. So somebody who will take that decision, I don't know who it is. It goes from taxing cars, from people who are entering the city at a certain moment to, again, to let them pay more. In the country, in Belgium where I live, sometimes you pay 20 euro for a parking for a few hours. So people don't come with the car anymore. It's very simple. But it means also other means of traffic. It's bicycle lanes. Okay, summer period is perfect here in Bucharest to do this. Winter is more difficult. Infrastructure, subways, all those elements, I think, could help Bucharest a lot, and this should be concentrated on. I don't believe in enlarging the streets anymore, because again, it has been proven that it does not work. So the wider you make the streets, the more traffic you will get. Parking is an issue. Yesterday I drove to Bucharest. You see on the left of the street there's a car, on the right of the street there's a car, and even if you're unlucky, the car is also on the pedestrian way. So it doesn't make any sense to walk on foot, because you don't even have a footpath anymore. The challenge is there, and it's up to the lawmakers to follow what other cities have done, and also what other cities have been criticized for. But what we do see is that cities where they in fact stop the car traffic, that the local businesses are setting up new businesses on the ground floor. People pass again, people walk again. You go slowly through a city. There's a lot of advantages, and I'm the first advocate to discuss this with the authorities, to discuss this with the people. But honestly, I think we're not ready for it yet. But it will come. I assure you, if you want to make this Bucharest, you want to make Bucharest a sustainable city, then the car has to go.
Do you have an example of good practices in terms of urban landscaping? Because when I think about other European capitals, the situation doesn't seem much better. Maybe Germany is better, but when I think of Paris, for example, I think about it just exactly like Bucharest.
Yeah,
the
no,
traffic.
you have a good point. You have a very good point. I think the Nordic countries, Copenhagen, are very advanced in this, and they have amazing examples of how to develop a city and how really to block the traffic and to make the public spaces public again. But what you see is that certain cities try something. They say, okay, let's make this square or this street that has been very busy. Okay, let's take away the cars. Let's try to put them on the ground. Again, another investment. And let's make it car free. And what you do see is that these cities are mostly loved by the people who live there. And that's the main thing. As a tourist, you can go to a city and say, okay, it's dense, but you, as an inhabitant of a city, you have to feel very comfortable. And I think that is the most important issue. And what we do see in the cities where they have banned a big part of let's say, mechanical traffic, is that these cities are high in the rating of being livable and enjoyable.
Okay. Tell us a little about your projects. Which are the projects that, I don't know, made you more proud during your career, and which are also the projects you want to achieve in the next period of time?
Yeah. Again, what we do love, and it's a little bit my dada, if I can call it, and also Didier, my partner, his dada, is reviving certain areas. If I look what we have done with Speedwell over the last years, it's not a secret. We bought a lot of old factories, which in fact were in a certain location in the city, and then the city grew over those industrial sites, and they are just left behind and abandoned, sometimes still in use, sometimes not in use. And those areas, they have advantage of scale, first of all. They have the advantage of connectivity, and they have the advantage of being quite close to the city center. And if you can revitalize those areas, but not by eradicating, destroying everything and building something new, but by also reviving what was already there. In Cluj, for example, we did a nice project, Record Park. There was an old industrial building on that one, and we started to look what's in behind. We started to open the walls, and it was a very, very nice building in brick. And now that part, it was not protected, to tell you, but when we revived that part, it became the heart of the whole development, and that's why I think the whole part of history and soul of a project is very important, and that's the whole idea also for Griro. Griro is really my personal baby, I would call it. We have been nurturing it for 3 years now, redesigning also with international urbanists. What came out of it is absolutely amazing and could change the face not only of the city but also of the whole area. And of course, you have people who are against it, saying, "Okay, no, the area is already too dense." Okay, people are always afraid of change. I tell them, "Come here and tell us what you want, what you're missing in your area, and maybe we can implement it in our new project." And the result of Griro is really, it's a follow-up of urban landscapes based upon the history that's already there on site. So we keep a lot of structures, we keep steel structure, we keep brick masonry walls, we create new architecture on top of it. We create place for art galleries, for restaurants, for coffee shops, open spaces for outdoor cinema, sports. That is really for me what we intend to do, not only in Romania, but also outside of Romania. We really want to emphasize on that part. And architecture and landscaping play a huge role in achieving these goals.
And the project Griro, the investment you announced was around 500 million euros?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's a big one. It's a big development. We talk about 240,000 square meters, which is huge. It's not going to be built in 1 year. It's not going to be built in 5 years. I hope it's going to be built in 10 years if we get our permitting on the road. But a master plan that you create for a project like that is a master plan that has to be flexible, because people change from economical point of view, society changes, people also change. Maybe at a certain time people will have more children or less children, so we have to adapt it very, very fast. That's what we made. We made a grid that's ready for the future, but based upon the past.
And what would be the first stages of the project, the residential part, and afterwards?
Yeah, we immediately do the mix. I think that's very, very important also to show to the authorities that we walk the talk. That's also important for us. So not only making one ghetto of office again, there we want to have the mix immediately from the start. We also got a lot of demand from hotels, and we have the advantage. We're just by the railway. We're just on the side of the plot. We have the metro station, and also that's something. If you look at a lot of European countries, you see all the areas around railway and stations are becoming much more important in development. People are coming with public transport. Those areas are in fact. A lot of new city areas have been redeveloped around those stations.
Do you think that this project would also make the North Railway, Gara de Nord from Bucharest, better, nicer?
Well, I certainly hope so. But I think what we discussed in the beginning, public transport, investing in public transport, that's investing also in Gara de Nord. It's investing in the area in front of Gara de Nord. Mostly, I take it when we go to Brașov or to another Romanian city, we take the train. For us, that's normal. It's easier than to sit in the car for 4 hours. You guess the train at least to arrive. But there's a lot of work around Gara de Nord. I have to tell you. But I saw the plans also that from Sector 1 they wanted to make a park in front. These are the first steps to relive those areas.
Okay, and tell us, just to be clear, Griro, what's the stage of the project now? You have the issue with the permits, or
no,
you have solved that?
No, So what we bought the land before we went to the, let's say, of course you have the CU procedure where you have the certificate of urbanism and you say, okay, can I do a PZ on that land? And that's what we received without an issue. And then we went to the new urbanistic commission, which I again praised very much. It's very important that qualified and specialized people from the city sit together around the project and see if that project is viable to develop. I think it's very logical to do it. But we went there and we presented our project, and I think we had a very good feedback. Some people applauded the project because we didn't go with architecture, we went with urbanism, and that's the whole idea. We start with urbanism. It's not a closed compound, it's really opening up the city, opening up the streets, public spaces. And that was more than a year ago. And then we have heard nothing. We have been asking to what's going on, we don't get any answer. I'm very sorry to say it's a pity, and this project I'm showing it to other architects in other countries. Everybody's praising it. They say, okay, this is a really typical, let's say, urban renewal project. When we started the project, we asked offers to one of the biggest and most known architectural companies. Not only one, we had an offer from Rem Koolhaas, OMA. We had an offer from Norman Foster, and we had an offer from Björn Engelsson. They were all excited about this project, but again, we chose Seki to do the master plan. The first thing they said when they came over here, when can we talk to the city? When can we talk to the mayor? How to develop? What the needs are? And I say, excuse me, that's impossible. We tried, but there is no response.
So you basically have no response for a
No response.
100 million euro project.
Yes. Yeah. Not. And even with. I think we should have a discussion. I don't want to say this is my project and this is it. It's just it's an open discussion, and I do not understand. If you look at the location now, if you look at the project as it is now, it's a dirty area. It's empty. There are rats there. There's dirt there. People are stealing steel. It's a disaster for the moment. We really want to, and time is very precious in this, because the more you wait, the more it's getting deteriorated. Yeah, it's amazing.
So nothing. So how long have you been waiting for this answer?
Well, the urbanistic commission was in May last year.
Okay.
1 year. So we don't even have the opportunity after 2 years and a half. They don't even give us the opportunity to start investigating the possibility of a PUZ. So we're not even talking about approvals, but just the city giving us the right to investigate all the avisen for that piece of land. We don't even get that. And we don't get a reason why not.
So what's the worst case scenario? You just don't do the project if you don't get an answer? What do you think will happen?
I'm a believer. I think common sense will prevail. You cannot freeze a city, as I mentioned in the beginning, you cannot freeze a city of 3 million people, or it will, disaster will happen. And I think there's the need for people to live in a quality manner in the city. What's happening now, everybody's going to Ilfov outside of the city. Again, puts pressure on traffic. You don't have the infrastructure to bring all those people outside of the city and to bring them back. You talk about sustainability, you talk about carbon neutral developments, and what you see is that there's nothing new. There's not given a chance to anything new. It's incomprehensible, really, from that point of view. I really do not understand why not somebody is not saying, okay, we have to develop the city, we have to grow the city. Of course, it's very easy to criticize all developers and to call us all Rikin Immobiliar, but it's a real pity. I think those times they should be over. People are investing to have a quality development, and that's also for Speedwell. If you do a project that's not selling, we're also hurt. So what do I see today? That some people still can build based upon old PUZs that were before that area. And you come to a point where people have no choice, where they have to live because there is no new offer. So normally, if you have a healthy environment, you as a client, you can say, okay, I would like to stay in that development, or I would like to stay in this development, or I like to stay in a development where they have put more emphasis on urban landscape or on sustainability. Now you don't have that choice. You just have to take what's on the market, and prices are increasing, and then you make Bucharest a city for the rich and the few. And everybody else has to go outside and have to stay in traffic for 4 or 5 hours to enter the city. Is that the future? Is that the future of urbanism? Is that the future of landscape? I'm sure it's not. And I will keep on fighting that. So I'm a believer, yes, we will develop green.
Thank you very much. I wish you good luck in making projects that make cities better. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you very
and
much.
I hope you will not have as many challenges as you have had.
Well,
yeah.
Experience has learned me that the most difficult projects and the more challenging projects are the best projects. So thank you very much.
So good luck. The one in Bucharest will be the best then.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Vă mulțumim și vouă că ați fost alături de noi și de această dată. Ne vedem în curând la o nouă ediție a emisiunii ZF Real Estate by Storia.ro.